Ninja Gaiden 4 has been one of the greatest games that I've had the pleasure to wait for almost a full year after finding out its existence and have the luxury of playing it and even more so covering it as much as I could and as much as I did. This game does a lot of things right and misses a lot of points. Now, as reviews goes, I don't want to praise it then bash it or bash it and then praise it. I'll simply just say what my experience has been with the game compared to the other titles and master, remaster, remakes, and such and such and such. So far, there's a couple of things this game does amazingly well. The feel of combats. Now, saying that this feels like the best feeling Ninja Gaiden game to ever exist is not far from the truth. No, it doesn't have the same depth as Ninja Gaiden 3 Razor's Edge. It doesn't have the greatest story compared to Ninja Gaiden 1 and Ninja Gaiden 2. And it doesn't even have the greatest characters compared to Ninja Gaiden 1 and Ninja Gaiden 2. However, the story structure is very well told, but the story itself is poorly paced. There's a lot of mixed signals, as you can tell, with the game. With the story aspect, the voice acting carries so much weight because of the evolution that voice acting has experienced since Ninja Gaiden 2 came out, or even Ninja Gaiden 1, to now, almost, twice, like 10. No, that's 20 years. It's almost 20 years. So there's a lot that has evolved in technique, combat as well. So the story feels much more interesting to listen to, and it captivates you a little bit more than the other one. But because of the captivation, you also pay more attention to how little things make sense and how fast they progress. Well, at least I can say now that I finally know how Platinum and Team Ninja managed to push this game out in 6 years of development time. And it shows there's a lot of things not there. But I don't want to sound too negative about it because at the end of the game, this game made me feel extremely happy. I've spent the whole week pretty much playing it. I've neglected everything else, pretty much everything else, for the first 4 days. I didn't keep up with my other games. I didn't tune in to social media as much. I was just playing the game, playing the content, and uploading as much content as I can for you guys and guides as well. Now, to get to the TLDR, because I know a lot of you are impatient and just want to be like, oh, what's the rating? How good is it? How is it compared to 2? How is it compared to 3? Where would you put it on a tier list? I'll simply say this. Combat, it's has more potential than Razor's Edge. But right now it's not there. And the reason why combat is not there is because despite it feeling fantastic, and despite it having so many options, that I would say it has the potential to surpass Ninja Gaiden 3 Razor's Edge, which is a very bold statement considering that game's combat has the highest potential in almost any hack and slash game. Ignore my poor gameplay right now, but the when it comes to depth, Razor's Edge is unmatched because of the amount of crazy stuff you can do in that game. Despite Ryu having less tools in comparison to Ninja Gaiden 2, with his 9 weapons in that game, Razor's Edge still manages to somehow trump that with as little as 7 weapons. Still, with that being the case, this game lacks one main thing, and we have been singing that song ever since we found out about it, and that is Ryu. Ryu is very much non existent in the sense of he doesn't have weapons. He's not that present in this story. He's not that involved in dialogue, which is fine on that last case because Ryu's not the type of character to talk too much, anyways. And I'm glad that Team Ninja has kept the integrity of Ryu perfectly intact when it comes to his characteristics. And that goes across the board. In combat, in story, in dialogue, in feel, especially, Ryu is Ryu. He is absolutely the super ninja that we all know and love. And a little bit of lore piece, Ryu in this game has confirmed to be the head of Hayabusa clan. since this is after Ragebound, this is the latest entry in Ryu Hayabusa's story. So he is the head of the Falcon clan, the Hayabusa clan. He is referred to as Hayabusa-san, not Ryu anymore. They respect them and they acknowledge the fact that he is extremely well known and probably the strongest thing in the universe of Ninja Gaiden. And he shows it. He definitely feels like it in gameplay. He is very fast. He is very powerful. His magic attacks, his Nimpo attacks are incredibly strong, as you're witnessing right now. His combat feels amazingly balanced. Everything you do feels like it matters. Didn't mean for that to rhyme. All his hits, all his strings, all his launchers, all his landers, everything makes sense. Everything hits, everything connects as long as you go and abide by the mechanics of the game. That's why I say this game has more potential than Razor's Edge because everything seems to work and not run on RNG or extreme links of attention to hit confirming strings. Which in Razor's Edge case, it comes down to a lot of inconsistencies. Players can absolutely adjust to any type of inconsistency. You can always find a way to manipulate it. But the thing is, you don't need to do that in this game as much. You don't need to hyper focus on every single button press you do. It's better if you do, of course, but you don't need to. There's mechanics you follow that give you openings, that give you opportunities. There's no mindless spamming in this game. Like, as much as I do love it, but Steel on Bone was a very mindless mechanic. Then again, Ninja Gaiden 3 needed that mechanic for it to survive. Otherwise, a lot of encounters would be nearly impossible. And still, players that want to enjoy Razor's Edge do tend to just avoid the Steel and Bone mechanics to actually see the combat flourish. In this game, you don't need to do that as much because everything falls in line. So it is, by all means, better balanced and better constructed than any other previous Ninja Gaiden. Even more so than 2. Because despite how great 2 is and how amazing it feels to play Ninja Gaiden 2, any edition of it, might I add, that game has a lot of inconsistencies and that can lead to mild frustrations, depending on your behavior. And this game has much less of that. There are some bosses, there are some enemies that tend to cheat when it comes to abiding by the mechanics, but set mechanics that they tend to ignore are very high execution tier, like some of the backlash parries and fatal flash parries and all such. Yeah, not your average player is not going to do all those on first playthrough. So you won't be able to see it unless you very much dwell very deep into the combat. So there are some things to polish out, but despite all that, despite this being a day one game with no patches just quite yet, it still plays better and is more consistent than all its previous predecessors. So, when it comes to combat, to wrap it up, since I just talked about it for 10 minutes, combat has the potential to be the best in the series. You can argue it doesn't feel Ninja Gaiden, you can argue anything you want. I'll get to that at the end of the video because I feel like the thing I'm going to say is going to trigger a lot of people emotionally and mentally when I say this, but I promise you that I don't talk out of my ass. I was looking for a better word to describe it, but I don't parrot things people say. I don't pay attention to people's opinion because I simply don't care about what other people think. I'd rather have my own opinion. And in the case of Ninja Gaiden 4, there are some strong things people have been saying that are not far from the truth, but we will touch upon that at the end, as I said. But combat-wise, this game is absolutely an 8 out of 10 if you want by a rating system. The two things that hold it back is Ryu doesn't have his weapons. Ryu doesn't have his arsenal. And the other thing is that some strings and motions have been removed, such as your underworld drop, such as your Heaven's Fall drop. Those grabs are not there anymore. Removing some of the strings has hurt Ryu's depth. And it saddens me because I could only imagine how amazing doing an underworld drop with the dragon sword and, or better yet, the Archfiend blade skin would feel in this game. So not having those is a crying shame, but I am giving that judgment, I'll pause for now till the DLC comes out next at the start of next year. We will most likely see a trailer for the weapons or weapon. Who knows how many there are? Who knows what content's in there? But there absolutely will be something there. Now, again, the two things holding it back are just the lack of weapons and some of the removed strings. Taking away from an already established character never feels good. And I do understand that sometimes you need to take away to add more stuff, but it always feels cheap. Even fighting games, when you see your characters lose certain strings or certain inputs, and then they gain new stuff, it kind of makes you feel hollow, and you feel like they could have just assigned that to a different input. And in this case, you can't really do that, but Ryu doesn't have heavy strings that can alter from light, light, heavy, back, forward, like light, light, heavy. Like it doesn't; those don't exist anymore. So your forward inputs are gone, and they've transitioned to back forward inputs. And doing a back forward input string transitions you to a new string instead of making a new chain. So if you do 1, 2, 3, 4 light and then do back forward, it goes to a whole new string. It doesn't give you a different chain. It just changes your combo seamlessly, but it does change the combo. And same with the back forward heavy. It's the same thing. They both launch too, and it's some of his best strings that they've kept. So I'm not against it. I just wish they also add more a little bit. Now, moving away from that, from actual combat, going on characters. There is one elephant in the room. And again, this is kind of spoiler, but the game has been out for a week, and there has been official confirmation of this by Platinum on two different occasions. Ayane is in the game, as I've said before many, many times, and Ayane is very well designed. Very thoroughly, she is designed. And that can only make you think one thing. Why would you design a character so well, so detailed, just to put her into cutscenes? And my optimistic hopefulness towards that statement is that Ayane will most likely be a playable character at a later date. Um, I don't think it's going to be in the Two Masters DLC, but I'm sure eventually Ayane will be put in the game as a playable character. I would even go as far as to say maybe even Tyrant will be playable in the game. And as to reiterate on that a little bit, Tyrant seems to be the source of Yakumo gaining his Bloodraven scythe. Because if you've paid attention to the final dev blog that Nishi-san did, which is she is the art director of the game, she showed a concept art of Tyrant, and Tyrant's main weapon seems to be a long scythe. And Yakumo's weapon that he's gaining in the Two Masters DLC is a scythe in his Bloodraven form. So I would assume that Tyrant will be a boss fight as a trial or maybe a chapter. And by beating him, you unlock the scythe. And maybe same with Ryu. Ryu probably gets to fight something. I have no theory to what Ryu could be fighting. It could be Ayane as a boss fight. That is also very possible, but we're getting into a different territory. So, as far as combat goes, the game has a lot left to offer, and they are coming. So, if you're happy with the combat, I only have good news for you. There will be more. If you're unhappy with the combat, there will be more, and you might like it then. And if you just done with it, then I hope you enjoyed your time here. Now, let's get into the story segment of this review. This story, as I've said, is very weird paced. Everything happens a little too fast. Sayori and Yakumo bond extremely quickly. And it feels a little unnatural sometimes. But I do understand for the sake of moving the story along, everything had to happen a little bit too fast. And the game is pretty lengthy. 19 missions is pretty lengthy. It's technically 21, but two of them are tutorial stages, so that doesn't count. So technically it's 18, because chapter 14 is a tutorial stage, but it still counts as chapter 14, which is the first chapter you start playing Ryu as. Now, as far as characters go, the characters are amazing. Um, Sayori is the most beloved so far, based on population feedback. Is that everybody agrees that Sayori is the best addition in this game. Everybody loves her. Everybody seems to really care about her, just like Yakumo did, very quickly. So it's funny that the fans seems to be attached to this character that does not have much screen time and just dialogue. But if the character in game that actually does interact with him grows to too attached to that person, it seems weird. So then again, as I'm saying, Yakumo is seems to be, we don't know this for sure, but Yakumo seems to be a young kid, very impressionable and very egotistic, as in cocky. He is young. All of us have been young, so I'm sure you can find a time in your life where you were extremely arrogant as a young man or a young girl. So his characteristic makes sense. The game doesn't press the button too much of you trying to pay attention to him to see what's under that tough act he puts up. But there are moments that come up. Also, I'm gonna go on a side note and say these lanterns are absolutely the most horrendous enemies and the scariest enemies in this game. If you ever do play Master Ninja, watch out for that, because that will chuck you for half your health. Back to the story. There is a lot to be there, but the cutscenes do not explain it, and the dialogue doesn't either. Unless you go out of your way to interact with the extra dialogues at Tyrant's shop and Umi's shop. Those give you a lot of context as to what's going on and a lot of backstory on the DDO commander and then the reason why the Dark Dragon is being reborn. Now, to summarize this, Ryu and Sayori beforehand put up the seals around the place to contain the Dark Dragon in its current form. Ryu has already slain the Dark Dragon 3 times. The reason why he could never finish the job is because Kureha, Momoji's sister, died before she could complete the seal. Ryu was completely and fully capable of taking down the Dark Dragon and purifying it himself. However, because of Kureha's death, the priestess connected to that was destroyed. She could never fulfill that. Oh gosh, I forgot the term I was looking for. When you ritual, there you go. She could never finish that ritual. So therefore, Sayori is that key now. Sayori is the Dark Dragon's connection. And Ryu even does mention that he thinks of Sayori kind of like Kureha. And if you don't know who Kureha is, you probably need to play Ninja Gaiden Dragon Sword, which is the very smart, clever way of the Ninja Gaiden for the DS. And I do mean for DS, the console DS. That's why it was called Dragon Sword, because the initials are, yes. Itagaki was a very smart man. But point aside, Rip Itagaki, by the way, point aside, Ryu is the only person that seems to care for Sayori, seems to understand why she's like, she's just a lonely girl. Everybody hates her, everybody's afraid of her because she is the vessel for the Dark Dragon. But Ryu understands better than anybody because he's already been through this process and he lost his chance to do what he was supposed to do. So, enter Yakumo. Yakumo's initial goal, despite being, and there, if you've listened to Kadachi's theme in the game, which I will touch upon as well, Kadachi, in the lyrics part of him, sang by Victor Barba, greatest vocalist in the modern hack and slash gaming, the singer of Buried the Light in Devil May Cry 5. There is a segment that says, fighting against each other for the same cause, champions of our creed. It's because Yakumo and Kadachi and Ryu, everybody accompanying you on this story, is actually working towards the same goal, but they are testing Yakumo. Because if you've played Razor's Edge, you'll know that this connects to it a little bit because there's that darkness you have to avoid when you're doing what's necessary, the way Ryu and Yakumo are doing it. Everybody thinks Ryu is evil because he goes around killing actual human beings, whether they're terrorists, whether they're mercenaries, whether they're just bad people. He's still killing people. So people, or like characters around him associate that with, oh, he's a murderer. This is why I say like the Razor's Edge story or Ninja Gaiden 3 story has been a little misunderstood. It's because the point of the story was really poorly delivered to you, but it was telling you that despite what Ryu's doing, despite how he might look like, it is for the betterment of the world and saving it in most cases. He might be killing people, but he's killing people that would absolutely destroy and ruin lives. If you watch Dexter, you could probably, connect that a little bit. But the point I'm trying to make is that Kadachi and Ryu are there to test Yakumo. So the story technically begins with Ryu and Saori going around and creating these seals around the place for the Dark Dragon to be contained in its form. And Yakumo's unaware of all of this. So his mission, as the Raven Clan has assigned him to do, is to go and slay the Dark Dragon, killing it, or the priestess, so it can never be reborn again by breaking the seals. That's not going to solve the issue, but he was aware of that, but he didn't have a better way. So he thought the best way to do this was to just kill the priestess, so the Dark Dragon can never be reborn, which is something that happened to Kureha. Now the problem is that Saori knew all this would happen. She and Ryu already have planned all this, and Kadachi also. So Sayori told Ryu to hang on to a certain dark Magatama, which is a dragon jewel, but this one is the dark dragon jewel. And I could probably bring up a story portion just to actually show you, but the whole point was that they were getting ready for Yakumo's arrival because Yakumo was supposedly the only person that could have destroyed and purified the dark dragon after his reincarnation to finally end its reign. I'll see if I can bring it loud. Sorry, but let's see if I can bring up that specific cutscene. It's actually probably better if I just showcase this anyway. My first playthrough as Ryu is probably not going to look that attractive, but we shall nonetheless watch it. But yeah, Ryu and Saori were planning this from the get-go, and it did work. So after Saori gave the dark dragon jewel to Ryu, Ryu kept onto it. He held onto it. So when the time is right, Yakumo will receive this power and go on to do his bidding. And all the cutscenes along the way kind of deliver that point too. They're going around. This is how the sealing process works. They're actually sealing each section that it takes to seal a dark dragon. And the cutscenes and the, it will explain everything. But yeah, as you see, despite Ryu being covered in blood, he's still very concerned about Sayori. Why do you care? Everyone else thinks me dead, and I don't, or wants me dead, and I don't blame him, right? And Ryu goes on to say,
"It's all my fault.
You were being used by Achilles. Nothing more.
But I..."
Come. There's still work to be done.
So Ryu being Ryu, as always, he doesn't say much, but just the little bit he says counts so much because people understand him. And the beautiful thing with this is that if you actually do play the story and pay attention to it, you'll notice that very much so, very, very much so, it is structured for Yakumo to be set up as a person that was also experiencing everything Ryu did, but just in one game. He went through the trial of his Kureha, his Dark Dragon. He went through the trial of, like, is he a murderer? Is he a bad person? Is he just a villain? Just like Razor's Edge did, And kind of missed the point of, like, NG2 being a thing, but because he didn't have to go through that trial specifically. But yes, Kadachi never wanted to kill him. Kadachi never wanted to harm Yakumo. Kadachi was there to test him, to strengthen him. Every trial, every boss fight was there to do that for Yakumo, because being that young and being that arrogant, you're bound to make a mistake and get yourself killed. And he almost does. He almost does at the end of the game. Despite him landing a finishing blow, almost a finishing blow on the Dark Dragon, spoilers, he almost ends up dying for it. But because of his motivation of what he went through with Sayori and everybody else, he got that one adrenaline rush and actually managed to push through it. If, and I should bring up this fight right now because it's very important, but oh, wrong video. But one of the most important thing in this whole game, after I'm getting demolished by Ryu in this section, so let's see if I can bring it up. I think this is where I finally beat him. Yeah. So in this fight, in his fight against Ryu, Yakumo gains the upper hand for 1 second, and Ryu bets his life if he kills me, if he tries to actually harm me, then this kid is not the one to do this job. That's why he takes a sigh of relief because his judgment was right. Everything they've planned up till now has not been in vain. Sayori didn't lose her life for nothing because Yakumo is not evil. Yakumo is not full of hatred. He doesn't want to kill. He just wants to get the job done now.
Yakumo!
And this is the Dark Dragon Jewel.
A parting gift from Sayori. The Jewel of the Dark Dragon.
And Sayori at the start of the game gives him a different tool. He says, hey, Yakumo, hang on to this when the time is right, which is this thing, the jewel. The jewel and the hairband, if you combine these two, just like how you combine the dragon jewel with the dragon sword, it becomes a true dragon sword. If you combine these two, you get the dark dragon sword. It's back the way it was before. A little bit better looking.
The Dark Dragon Blade. The blade of legend harnessing the power of the cursed worm itself. Blackened rain beckons our bloodline's amends through the death of his priestess. Must the dragon be cleansed? In the hands of a Raven Clan ninja, it has the power to purify the dragon once and for all. Now go. The Dark Dragon's fate and Sayori's will are in your hands.
Ryu put all his trust in Sayori, and Sayori put all her trust in Yakumo. And they both ended up being right. And one of the other parts that I will bring up later is that Kadachi did the same thing in that fight. This is probably near the end of it, so I'll skip all the way here. Kadachi ends up beating my ass quite a long time. But I finally get the better of him eventually. But Kadachi did the same thing. I think I do heal. Anyways. When you beat Kagachi, Yakumo doesn't go for the kill. He just disarms him. No pun intended. I get it. He just cut off his arm. But no pun intended. He just disarms him. And Kagachi is fully ready to accept his fate. There's a really interesting lore part about his demonic arm too, but we'll get to that later. I feel like this video is already going to be long enough me explaining the story premise because it is kind of hard to follow. Kadachi hurt and almost incapable of fighting any further. Gets up like the true warrior he is, and he closes his eyes to accept his fate. But Yakumo doesn't kill him because, again, Yakumo is not supposed to be a killer. He's not a bad character. He's not supposed to be a villain. He smiles in relief and lays down to recover his stamina after that fierce battle. And Kadachi's swordplay is, by the definition of the lore itself, is comparable and being compared to Ryu. So he is a very formidable fighter. So they have been setting up Yakumo to become stronger through all his trials throughout the game. So, no, he couldn't have beat Ryu. If you're worried about Ryu being disrespected in the lore, no. Ryu has shown multiple times that Yakumo is nowhere near him. Nobody in the verse is. Yakumo is nowhere near his strength. Out of all the combats they've done, Yakumo only managed to put Ryu on the back foot for a brief moment. And that was the moment where Ryu said, if you can push me this far, maybe it's time to see if you can. He's capable of killing the Dark Dragon. And again, he almost fumbled it. Almost fumbled it. So no, Yakumo doesn't beat Ryu. Yakumo doesn't crash on Ryu. Yakumo doesn't dog on Ryu. No, Ryu takes a gamble like the warrior he is, puts his life on the line, and gets the answers he wanted. So the story premise is, by all means, very touching if you know the lore of the previous Ninja Gaidens. Of course, if you know more lore, the new lore makes sense. It's always like that, especially in hack and slash games where a story seems to be like the least focused part of these games. But will I say the story is as good as 2 or 1? No, not really. But it also depends kind of on you as a player. What type of story do you like? What do you consider a good story? As far as my taste goes, the story setting was good. I do think the characters did a really good job of setting it up, but I also do think the pacing was a little bit too fast. But I understand why. It's because making a game like this and focusing this much on the gameplay takes insane amount of time, and you don't have infinite time and money to make a perfect product like this. It's very hard and very rare. I think the only time a game has been successfully perfect in gameplay, perfect in story, perfect in character, and all the aspect, and being a hack and slash game has been Devil May Cry 3. Back in 2005, where games were much easier to make and cost insanely less. But aside from the point, I would give this story, if you're a rating type of person, I would give this story a 7 out of 10. Because while I think it's good, it's very on the nose that you can't put everything together unless you know what's been going on beforehand. So the story will just feel like a rushed piece of script to you. But it's not like that. You just need to do a little bit of research or dive in the back of your memory a little bit to realize what it was actually all about. Now, those are the two main things being taken care of. People care about the combat in the hack and slash games, and your casual audience care about the story a lot. So now I will dwell into the small stuff, and this is going to be the final section of it before I go off the script. The small stuff being the content of the game. Now I have 80 hours on the game already, approximately. I have 80 hours on the app, but the game I have 72 hours on it. I guess all the times I stopped to upload added up to approximately 8 hours. But yeah, all the editing I did, which I do on my own. So this is one of the reasons why the content takes a little bit while to push out. But when it comes to content, the game has a perfect amount, in my opinion, for the price you're paying for it. Of course, you would want more. You would always want more. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with wanting more. But for the price you're paying, you actually do get a fair bit of content. I think 80 hours for $70 is not bad. And I bought the deluxe edition. I don't even have the deluxe edition content, so I paid more for technically some stuff I don't have yet. But we'll see what the deluxe edition is worth. I'm hoping multiple weapons. I'm hoping maybe Ayane's in there, and I'm hoping at least 2 chapters. But we'll see. I think it'll be 1 chapter because the game has 19 chapters, so 1 chapter will make that a flat 20, and that will just be good for my OCD. But the combat trials, which are the ninja trials, are pretty good. When I say good, there's 18 trials in total, and they are fair for the most part. It's because they're mainly designed to be done solo, unlike every other game now in the Master Collection, where all the trials are supposed to be handled by 2 players, but there's no online. So, yeah, it's a little bit of a problem, especially in the black version of Ninja Gaiden 2. This game's trials are mostly fun, mostly good, but there are a couple that are very sequency and scripty. So if you don't do it a specific way, you're probably not going to clear it. Combat Trial 10 would be the most infamous one I've seen in my comments on that video. People are very vocal about how they don't like that one. It's because it's hard. The game gives you 30 seconds to do a lot of kills on a lot of big enemies, and you do it a specific way. If you don't, you're not gonna clear it. But for the most part, the combat trials are fun. And the difficulty modes. You have your 4 base 1 hero, which does not matter because it's just your training wheels. You got normal, you got hard mode, you got master ninja. Now, here comes one of my biggest gripes with this game: the difficulty of the game does not change anything about it besides the amount of damage you take up until Master Ninja. So normal, hard, and hero all have the same enemy waves, the same aggression, the same boss behavior, and the same boss health. Nothing about them changes. In Master Ninja, this gets better because the enemy waves you get all are upgraded to their strongest version and variants of everything you fight, and they last much longer. So Master Ninja is extremely fun to go through when it comes to the content that you're dealing with. The enemies are there's so much more enemies, so you're just fighting more often. That could be a good and bad thing depending on your skill level and preferences, of course. But for the most part, for Ninja Gaiden, especially if you're a Ninja Gaiden 2 player, those long fights with a lot of enemies are very um, nice to have. So, with that being said, the problem with Master Ninja is the damage you take. You will most likely get hit twice and you will die by 90% of the enemies. And some bosses just flat out kill you. A Vanguard grab can kill you from full health. Kagachi hitting you with a power attack can kill you with one hit. Onikawa, which is a side quest enemy, can kill you with one hit on his final battle. That is textbook Ninja Gaiden 2. But it does not mean it's good. It does not mean it's fun. It does not mean it's well designed. Not at all. I think absolutely it's a waste to have such fun enemy variety and waves in a game mode where making a mistake can actually mean you restart the checkpoint and go back so far to redo these fights. So I hope Team Ninja or Platinum does something about the waves you get in Team Master Ninja and transfer them to hard mode. Because I feel like if hard mode had those waves, it would be a little bit more fun because you can make a couple of mistakes and still go on about your fight and recover. Even in Master Ninja, you can still recover from them without using items. And I did beat Master Ninja without the use of any items. And on the process of doing so, I did manage to get the top rank on most of the majority of the missions on Master Ninja difficulty. As you can see, rank number 1, mission 19 and mission 18, and a couple missions here and there in Master Ninja. I wasn't trying to go for top score. I was not optimizing anything. All I did was not die and not use items. These are all first attempts, one playthrough. I have not tried any of these missions multiple times. I have not tried to get top score. These happen naturally. One of the reasons why I wanted to wait for the game to come out globally for everybody to play was because I knew there was going to be a leaderboards, and I didn't want to have number one score on the leaderboards when I was the only one playing it weeks prior to everybody else getting the game. That would be meaningless. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to wait till the game was out so I could play it alongside you guys and see where I stand. And in most cases, as you can see, I think I'm not too bad. But that aside, the game has content for days, and it is fun, and it's fair. In most cases, it feels really fair. It doesn't feel cheap like Ninja Gaiden 2. It doesn't feel overwhelming like Ninja Gaiden 3. And it's not as balanced as NG1, but NG1 is a gem that will probably never be recreated again. So, mission lengths. Early on, the missions can be from 15 minutes to 30 minutes if you do all the fights in those missions. Like a lot of some of the fights lasted a very long time, which is good. But depend if you're used to hack and slashes, you're used to your missions lasting 5 to 10 minutes tops, not 30 minutes. So that's a good thing. Later on, it gets a little bit shorter. But yeah, early on, like this mission lasts approximately 20 to 27 minutes. The one before it lasts 20 to 30 minutes. Sorry, 39 minutes almost. Like they're pretty long and lengthy, which is again it's good. You want your game to be worth the price you paid, so it's nice that that's the case. And there's enough checkpoints in the middle. There's enough healing stations in the middle for you to not feel like, okay, I'm getting like absolutely demolished. Where's the healing? Like, okay. And if you are not me and you don't feel absolute shame by using items, the game gives you a lot of items that can help you throughout the game too. So all the stages, they give you a lot of healing and a lot of shops and a lot of ninja coins. As you can see, my ninja coin has been capped out ever since I finished normal mode. I have not used the ninja coins and I've always been on cap. And there's an item in the game you get for beating combat trial 18 that turns your ninja coins into damage. And I don't mean that like in a no. It's like imagine the Faust hat from Devil May Cry 5 in the accessory form, which mean all your special attacks like Nimpo, like Lean moves, all do extra damage by spending your coins, which is a really good accessory. I haven't tested too much because I don't like losing resources, even though that resource means nothing right now besides, you know, just sitting there. But yeah, content wise, the game has enough in one go. Again, this is the very first patch of the game, and there has been no DLC, no content, nothing yet. This is day one, 1.01. The only patch we've gotten is the day one patch. So, with that said, I think the game's content was pretty. And the deluxe content, which is so far just the skin and the Archfiend blade, as you can see, I have not moved. I have not changed the skin on either my weapon nor Ryu. I've been rocking the legendary Black Falcon skin ever since I got Ryu after I finished the game on normal ones, and the Archfiend blade skin because I just love how long the blade is compared to his true dragon sword. Now, when the deluxe edition drops, that might be a whole different story. We might get multiple weapons for Ryu, which is going to be an insane thing to happen. We might get multiple weapons for Yakumo. He already has 5. He might get a 6th one, and he might get a 7th one. We'll see. And we might even get a new character. Or 2. It's possible. We're in a day and age where you can just update content into a game without releasing a new edition. Not that I would put it past them, but... And I don't think many people would mind getting a Black or Sigma version eventually of this game if it has enough content to make it different. So, with that said, I will give it a little bit of a pause before I move on to this section. But to sum it all up, I think the combat's excellent. It has a lot of potential, but it has not been fully established yet. I think the story is decent, but it mostly falls on you being able to understand the lore and recalling back to the old stuff that happened. Because there's a lot of references, especially when it comes to Ryu in this game and the stuff that has happened in the past. And when it comes to content, I think it's fair. I think the asking price, and most of you are probably playing it on Game Pass. So you're probably getting the steal of a deal playing this game on Game Pass and not paying too much for it. So overall, I think most reviews have been fair that this game is definitely 8 and 9 out of 10. I would also give it an 8 out of 10. It is missing 2 major things. It's Ryu and just combat content. That's the main things that I think are holding this game back for me. Because the music is excellent. I cannot praise the music enough. Whether you think it fits in Ninja Gaiden or not, that's a different story. Because most of the music is built around Yakumo. It's supposed to fit his character. It's supposed to fit his themes. And they're not all metal, disco, jam. They are all traditional. Like this fight doesn't have a high octane theme. This fight has a very traditional theme to fit the atmosphere you're in, which is a temple. But some of the hype fights, like Kagachi's, like the DDO Commander, they are cyberpunky, futuristic technology bullshit, right? So their themes are new metal type of stuff. So industrial metal and all that. So it fits those fights, and that's the theme they're going with the DDO fights. The Ryu's fight is, or the theme is very gorgeous. It's a reminiscent of Genshin's theme, which makes sense considering how Genshin was the rival that, and Ryu is technically a rival here to Yakumo. And then Ryu's themes, the Ryu's main theme in this game is a homage to all his previous games. I would love to play it on screen, but I better not. But his theme is that the music transitions from all the main themes of each game, from Ninja Gaiden 2 to Ninja Gaiden 3 to Ninja Gaiden 1. It goes back and forth between it, and it sounds beautiful to listen to because it is a little bit more high octane than it used to be, but you can immediately tell that that's the theme. So, everything about this game is worth the wait. It has been worth the wait. 13 years of wait, probably not. It's been a long time, but it'll keep you sedated. It'll keep you happy, and it'll definitely be fun for you to play for a long time. Now, With that being out of the way, we already got the rating for the game. We know the premise of the story. We know how the music is. We know how the combat is, and we know the content of the game is worth it. Now it comes to the feel of it, and the feel of it is not subjective, unfortunately. I can say for a guaranteed fact, and especially from someone that's been playing these games, if you've been following me for a long time, you know that I play Bayonetta, you know that I play I play a lot of hack and slash games, and I do play Metal Gear Rising, but recording on the PS3 is a. But anyways, the game visually looks, and I do mean visual effects exclusively. The visual effects on this game look like Metal Gear Rising. It doesn't play like Rising, but the VFX look like Metal Gear Rising because it is ran on a Platinum engine. It is run by Platinum employees and it's made in Platinum. Of course, it will look like one of their best visually designed games, which would be Metal Gear Rising. It wasn't near, and it definitely is not Bayonetta when it comes to visuals. As much as I do like Bayonetta, but Bayonetta is in the game funny enough in the sense of like the combat of the floatiness of the enemies and how your character controls, and this falls strictly on Yakumo and not Ryu. The way Yakumo feels when you're interacting with enemies, and I do mean just basic enemies, not bosses, it feels very Bayonetta like. And as I said, this part will upset most of you because some of you are like, "Oh my god, it's like you're saying it's like that." That's not the point I'm trying to make. The point I'm trying to make is that they've tried to keep the best aspect of how the combat feels, and they've chose to make it feel like Bayonetta, which is a great thing because Bayonetta is probably Platinum's strongest and smoothest feeling game. So the fact that they've chose that peak to as a standing point, it's like good choice. There was no other better game in when it comes to feel in your arsenal to pull that from. So choosing to make the game feel like Bayonetta when you're playing as Giacomo and fighting enemies that you can float around, good choice. That is a brilliant choice. Visual effects of Metal Gear Rising, absolutely good choice. I don't think any game looks as good as that when it comes to cyberpunk futuristic look, especially with the way metal feels and the sparks and all that. Yeah, great choice. But it ends on Yakumo because Ryu does not fall into that. Despite enemies feeling like they're floaty a little bit, Ryu doesn't care because Ryu doesn't do air combat. Ryu doesn't do juggle combat. You can do some crazy stuff with Ryu, of course, don't get that wrong, but that's not the point I'm trying to make. The point is, Ryu is Ninja Gaiden through and through. That is his thing. He's always been Ninja Gaiden, and even in this game, he keeps that integrity. He's still Ryu through and through. But that is all for now. The review is long. I think I got number 4 here. Yeah, I did. Pretty close though. And again, I wasn't trying for it. I did get number 1 a couple of chapters prior, but yeah. This is hard mode though. Doesn't matter that much. But that being said, oh yeah, chapter 3, I got number 1. Anyway, that being said, that is all the points I was trying to bring. Do I think this game is worth your purchase? That is up to you to decide based on everything I've said so far. I have had full streams with no commentary, so you can actually just watch and enjoy the game. I will probably do another no commentary 100% playthrough in one go, so people can see the process without listening to me in a much faster time frame. And I would say this is a game that you will enjoy playing for a very decent amount of time before you get tired of it. So, as always, my recommendation towards any game would be to wait for a sale if you want to purchase it and support it, which I will do. I would appreciate if this game does get supported because we need more hack and slash games in the gaming industry. So, this just to put it out there before someone calls me a show. I'm not getting sponsored by Team Ninja or Platinum Games or Team Koei Tecmo like this. I've been doing this thing for 8 months out of my own interest, right? That's always been the case. So I do recommend the game. I do think you will have fun with it. I do think you'll enjoy it and appreciate for all the good it does. It doesn't do. I was reading chat. I was reading chat when I got hit there. Don't judge me. But I do think this game has a place in the hack and slash world, big time. And it'll shine more when it gets more content. So if you are again are happy with the current state of the game, then it'll only get better. One can only hope. And if you are unhappy with it, maybe wait till the early 2026 and wait till the DLC drop. You might get more than that. So you might get more than we've been shown. Which again, I hope during Game Awards we'll see the trailer for it. Or they might even release it sooner, like a couple of days before it, because a lot of companies do that because appearing on the Game Awards stage is very expensive. I think a minute of trailer is $500,000 on the stage. So, yeah, I don't think a game that's already out should spend that much money on advertising. I think they might release the trailer after or before. So, with that being said, thank you all for sitting through this hour long, yeah, almost hour long, yapping about this game. Um, I will be streaming it more, and I will cover all the. I've been covering all the bosses on no damage, and I have covered all the whatchamacallits, the combat trials. I have a video like it's 50 minutes long, and it's all the combat trials in there, and all the Onikawa challenges. Like I have, yeah, all the combat trials right here. So I've covered as much as I can on the game, all the flowers, like everything's there, and eventually I'll put all the boss fights out with no damage, so you can maybe take a few tricks on it and maybe even improvise on something. But as far as stream goes, I'm gonna catch up on my other games a little bit before I start returning to this game, and I do need to rest my right hand a little bit because the way I play this game is a little bit high octane, and my hand has gotten a little strained from playing nonstop for a week. So after a little bit of break, I'll come back to this game again. I'm still playing it daily, though. Don't get me wrong. It's just I'm not playing it for 8 hours a day nonstop. So, with that being said, the last thing I want to say is that I'm very thankful to all of you for supporting me so far, for tuning in, for sharing your thoughts and comments, and just having dialogue with me, and just asking questions and saying your pieces on it. That expands my point of view on things too when I hear you guys' thoughts. Whether it's constructive or trolly or whatever it is, whatever it can be, I still try to take the base value of it and see what exactly you mean. So don't be shy to share your thoughts on anything, and just keep on having dialogue, because the only thing we can do from here is improve the game, right? So feedback would be really important. So if I hear something of a good idea from you guys, I'll try to see if I can deliver that to Team Ninja as well. But we're almost at I think, yeah, I'm almost at 3K subs, and that's all has been thanks to you guys. So again, I appreciate you guys for being here all the time and listening to me yap about the games, because I love these games. I would never stop loving these games. Even if I do lose my head eventually, I'll still find a way to play this game. It does have a one-handed accessibility setting, so you know, it's there. Maybe that's how I need to play it for now. With that being said, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys next time. And I'm sorry this review took a week post-release, but I wanted to wait till everything was done. I wanted to wait till I was completely done with the game, in the sense of like, I've done everything. I've done all the content. I've covered all the difficulties. I've got the platinum for it, and I have all my thoughts lined up. And I think after a week, I finally hit that point. And I do think a week was the appropriate time to wait before posting it, because that's usually how long these games take for people to beat. Because some people are busy, some people are not. I didn't want to spoil too many people, so this ended up being a good choice. So I'm gonna upload this now, and I hope you guys see it. And again, if you have any thoughts, any opinion of your own, don't be afraid to post it in the comments. I would love to read it. And as one final note, I do apologize if I haven't been able to reply to all the comments recently I've been getting. I'll probably do that today afterwards. It's because I've been busy trying to provide content for this game. So with that said, I'll be a little bit more active in the comment sections, and I'll see your replies in there. For now, I'll cover any news that's worth covering that Team Ninja or Platinum posts, and I'll keep you guys updated till we get the DLC. Till then, signing out, and you guys take care. Stay safe.